Welcome to Connect and Collaborate. I am Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer, with one of my favorite guests in studio, Anthony Lambatos of Footers Catering. How are you?
I am doing awesome.
Yes.
Always love being here.
Yes. We always love having you. So excitingly enough, we just did another event with you, our View from the Top event. Always a smash, right? And it's even better when we have Footers Catering cater it.
We love being part of those events, so thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate that.
Our pleasure. So what else? We of course are a huge part of your customers that you have. So we obviously took up a lot of your time in September. You don't have anything else going on.
No,
just
nothing
us,
else.
right?
That was the only event we had. No, September has become one of our busiest months of the year, and I actually think it will be our busiest month.
Yeah.
The combination of 5 full weekends, not just 5 Saturdays. It's 5 Saturdays and Sundays is a pretty big deal. And over the course of the last 3 Saturdays, we feed over 1,000 people on each of those days. So
Oh my God.
it's the magnitude of what we're doing and what our staff is pumping out is unbelievable, and I continue to be inspired and impressed every day by what they're able to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am assuming you have cots set up just at the shop so people can sleep.
Funny enough, yes, it's a stretch to get through, especially when we've got events Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it's back to back to back. But our team is they've set themselves up for success, and we have the strongest team we've ever had. So it overall, while it's a lot of work, it's not overly taxing, and fortunately we don't have people sleeping at the shop. That might have been the case a few years ago, but we're in the clear, and like I said, this is a big month for us with the combination of you got fundraisers, you got corporate events, you got weddings. It's become such a huge wedding month for us as well, so it's exciting.
Yeah.
And my tribe is still going strong. We had some folks in from Baltimore 2 weeks ago, and next week we've got people coming in from Nashville, Tennessee, to come go through our curriculum and our program, and so we're excited about that. And it's been extremely rewarding to be able to make a difference in their companies and have some breakthroughs amongst their leadership team, where they are really understanding what they need to do to lead a little more with their heart and a little less with their head, and so it's amazing to be able to have that impact.
Oh, absolutely. I imagine that you get to see these people in their aha moments, their epiphanies,
Yes.
right, throughout these courses.
For sure. We had we had one of the attendees, and he was a co-owner and chef, and we knew he was going to be a tough one to crack a little bit. And at the end of the first day, he said, I feel like we had a breakthrough we really needed to have today. And he was all in on acknowledging where his shortcomings were and what he needed to do to change and what he wanted to do to be a better leader for his company. And that was that's why we're doing this. It's so rewarding to be able to help people get on that path of how you truly can lead an organization in a positive way that creates an amazing company culture, and doing it with heart leadership.
Yeah, I imagine. So when I'm going through this with you, what I'm imagining is a little bit of like a kitchen nightmares, like you're going through with Gordon Ramsay and
It's not that sexy, otherwise we'd be on TV for
right,
it.
exactly.
No, I mean these are companies that yes, definitely need our help, but there's a lot of them that are on the right track and just need a few tweaks to get there. So we don't have a lot of the cases where it is a complete nightmare and chaos and where we really have to go in and put out a dumpster fire. That's a whole nother separate
separate entity.
Separate
we'll
entity.
See if maybe you'll grow there.
We'll see. We'll see.
Well, tell me a little bit about your guest
Oh,
that you
yes.
have with us today.
We have an awesome guest today. Today, our guest is Rene Hosman, who was my mentee at DU 5 years ago, and we've kept in touch ever since. And she's somebody that I'm extremely proud of to see her grow, finish school, and then go out into the real world and real world. I hate that saying, but go
It's
out
true.
into the world and
Yes.
then decide that entrepreneurship was for her and start her own business, and she is thriving. And so it's going to be an awesome conversation, and I can't tell you how excited I am to have you here. Welcome, Rene.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, everyone.
Yes.
It's going to be fun. Well, let's just jump in because, this was a decision you made, 2 years ago? Well, you started really in college with this business, right?
Yeah, 3 years ago.
Okay.
Well, 2.5 years ago. This is our third summer in operation.
Okay.
And so talk through what inspired you to take that leap, to start your own business and go out on that limb?
Well, yeah, so it started while I was in school. I had always kind of had this inkling that I wanted to do something on my own. I grew up in Silicon Valley. That's like that. It's in the water there, I think. And both of my parents didn't work for startups. They worked for like large companies that they were very much ingrained in like corporate culture type thing. But I never really thought that was going to be for me. I like making my own decisions.
Uh-huh.
And so, yeah, when I was in school, we're required to do a number of managing internship hours. And I had an internship over the summer, but it was only going to be like 25 or 30 hours a week, and I was going to keep it for a few more months than over the summer to get my number of hours. And I'm not the kind of person who can just sit around and not do much. So I was like, I need something else to fill my time. And I'd been learning a lot about entrepreneurship and hospitality in school. I went to school to study hospitality management specifically. And I wanted to take the things I was learning in the classroom and see if they were actually applicable in real life.
Love it.
There's that term. Everything in the classroom seems like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Why would anyone do it any other way? Or like, of course, that's how food cost goes. Like, you don't actually. It's all very cut and dry, and there's like an answer that's right and wrong on every test. And so I wanted to see what that was actually like in real life. And I had a friend who's my former business partner who she was in culinary school, and we just decided to team up and start farmers markets, just like for fun, see what we could sell. She could test some stuff, I could test some stuff. And that's kind of where it all started.
And so now you have two businesses that you're part of. You have Cake the Bakery, which focuses on awesome cakes. I've had them before. Wonderful.
I saw them. They look delicious.
Oh, thanks.
And then Rebel Bread, which is another company that you're part of, focusing on wholesale bread distribution, correct?
Exactly, yeah. And then we have the co-op, the Denver Dough Collective as well, that we operate our co-op kitchen. But yeah, those are the two main focuses right now.
So you are by definition a young entrepreneur, and I'm curious for you how you feel about that term. Is that a condescending term, or is that a compliment when you hear people refer to you as a young entrepreneur?
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit earlier. I think it completely depends on who it's coming from and how it's said. Just like everything, but I think a lot of people mean it in a very well-intentioned way, and it winds up coming off a little condescending. I think that we, as young entrepreneurs, are probably our own breed of entrepreneurs, just being that we're, by definition, young and hungry.
Right.
We don't have a lot of other commitments tying us down, things like that. So I think that we are probably a subsect that deserves a title.
Sure.
But at the same time, I think a lot of people use it as you're just starting up, you don't really know, you haven't been around the block yet, but that's kind of the whole point of entrepreneurship, I think. So yeah, I think it really depends on where it's coming from when someone says it.
Sure. So what have you done to kind of overcome maybe some of that stigma? I mean, you're in your 20s and you're crushing it and doing an awesome job, have a legitimate business, that's your full-time thing. This is what you've poured yourself into. What, talk about how you've kind of overcome maybe some of that stigma of somebody not giving you the respect that, maybe somebody twice your age would get.
I think, honestly, our products speak for themselves. I think that is the best way that we can prove that we're doing great things, is we're providing really great service to our customers, and we're providing, well, in our case, really awesome baked goods that people love and they come back for. And once people realize that, the age becomes a non-issue.
Yeah, because you're putting together a great product,
Yes.
which you definitely have. So far, what has been the biggest challenge for you in this entrepreneurship journey?
I think the main, there's a lot of subsects of challenges, but kind of the biggest one for me that a lot of my challenges have stemmed from is, well, I guess that there are two big umbrellas. The first one would be, where do we want to go, which we also talked about a little bit earlier, and knowing that while I have a lot of energy and time to dedicate to these things, that I also need to be able to like take some space for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that all other issues stem from those two things.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so talk a little bit about how you've been able to mitigate some of those or get through those challenges.
Yeah.
Because I think that's something that all entrepreneurs run into and
Totally.
face. And yeah, you're right. We talked about that when you're thinking about who you want to be as an entrepreneur. When you're just starting out, it is very difficult to say no to anybody, right? If somebody wants to give you money, like, I'll take it, right?
Yes.
And that may not be the best decision. And you had a situation, which I applaud you, and I am amazed that you had the acumen to be able to say, this would be extremely impactful financially for my business, but in the scope of what I want to be, it's not the right decision.
Yeah. I think that it is definitely difficult with the, I have to pay bills.
Right.
And there's a lot that, especially having just come out of schooling and things like that, like you are 100% on your own, or at least I am. And that wasn't a huge life adjustment for me as much as it could be for other young people. I think that I've always thought about money in a very practical way. But I think that the challenge there, which took me 2 years probably to learn, is that some things just aren't worth it.
Uh-huh.
And so, yeah, I think my business partner is very good about that. And I think that was something that I was always like, he's very much lead from the heart, and I'm like lead from the financial side. But yeah, I think that has definitely been a huge challenge for me as far as where to draw that line, for when the money is just not worth it. And sometimes it's really hard to tell clients, like,
I don't want your money.
Yeah, and it's not, we can't, it's, we won't.
Yeah.
Which is, especially when you're the only one, because they're like, well, this didn't come from above you. Like, this is your decision. And
you can't blame it on anyone else.
I can't blame it on anyone else. So I think that is definitely difficult. I think that now that the business conversations a lot of people have are about fit, it's a little bit easier to have that conversation.
Yes.
Like, here's why I don't think we're a good fit. But the problem is that people who don't talk about fit are the people who aren't good fits.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's so true.
And so that's like the hardest conversation to have.
I imagine there's a little fear of burning a bridge.
Oh, absolutely. Especially, I have so much further to go in my career, and so much further that I want my companies to go. And I am so paranoid about building bridges and potentially burning them. Like that, would be my biggest fear. Relationships to me are very important also. I mean, that's like what I get the most joy out of in my business, is meeting with people and talking with people. As much as, I mean, I have 2 bakeries, but I do not consider myself a baker at all, actually, which is a common misconception. So yeah, the burning bridges is definitely a big part of it. Wanting to make sure that every relationship, if it does come to an end, comes to an amicable end.
Well, the other piece of this too, Rene, is just that staying true to who you are and who you want to be as a person. And when you're true in that way and doing it in an amicable way, or a way that you're proud of, the people that are friends are frustrated, those are the people that didn't need to be part of it anyway. Yeah. And the people that are on that other side will respect you more in the end for saying, yeah, I really appreciate that. You're right. We probably weren't a good fit. I couldn't see it at the time, but now that I see what you've done, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
We've gone through that as well. And I have to applaud businesses that are willing to stick to their values and say, Chick-fil-A, whether you agree or disagree with their political aura that's around them, they've made it a value that Sunday we're not going to open. They could sell a lot more sandwiches and a lot more food if they were open on Sundays. That is a financial decision that they've decided, nope, our values are more important than money. And I think that more businesses could benefit from being diligent about knowing who they are, knowing what their values are, and knowing when to say, no, this isn't good for us.
Yeah. Well, and you touched on an important point, which is, I think, has been another challenge for me and my business partners as being young entrepreneurs is knowing who you are. You said that. And who I was 3 years ago when I started these companies is completely different than who I am today. I mean, I'm in my early to mid 20s and I'm going through the biggest changes in my life that are going in the shortest amount of time that are ever going to happen, pretty much. And so that's also something to deal with every day is like, well, I know who I am today, but who am I going to be next year and in 2 years? And what do I want when I am that person? So yeah, that's also another challenge.
Good for you for thinking about that. So, talk a little bit.
It keeps me up at night.
That's what makes you special, though. That's, I mean, this, and for the work that we really try to do, there's so much of it that focuses inward. We want to, I think as a society as a whole, look outward and point the blame or say that this is the problem. And in reality, the most effective where we're going to be is when we look inside of ourselves and say, okay, what do I need to do to be different? How can I show up and make this a better situation or taking matters into my own hands and really understand that the power's mine to do whatever I want and figure out how to get there.
Yep.
So talk a little bit about some of the things that you feel like have made you successful. I mean, there's a lot of businesses that don't last a year,
I read that question and I was like, do I consider myself successful? I think that I have a small issue with your question only because I think the second I start considering myself successful is the second that I stop being successful. Because that means I'm like, okay, great.
That's a great outlook on it, actually.
I think the things that have kept us from failing and helped us along the way have been really important. I think that my personal connections and just like meeting people and going out and realizing people who I admire like Anthony and people who I want to keep in my life because not just for like career growth and like my personal growth too, but just like it's so good to have feedback in your life and get all kinds of feedback and get all kinds of help from all different kinds of people. And I think that is probably like the number one thing that has put me where I am today is just being able to maintain relationships with awesome people.
Yeah.
Well, and I think just knowing and seeing your journey, that's been a huge part of how you've gotten here is you haven't tried to just put your head down and do it all on your own. Yeah. You really have leaned on, professors and friends and people in the business community that you've met. I mean, we met, maybe your sophomore year in college and the fact that you've taken the initiative to keep in touch with me over that course of time is remarkable. Yeah. And there's most students and young professionals your age that don't have the gumption to do that and the willingness to do that. And it's something that, yes, it takes some work, but at the end of the day, it's not something that's like this magic
it becomes enjoyable
potion. Yeah.
I love getting coffee with you. It's great.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and for me, it's also because I value relationships personally. It's not like, what can you do for me right now? And it's not even necessarily like I meet someone and I'm like, oh, how can they help me? It's just getting to know people and caring about what they do and things like that. And in the end, in the long game, I think that's definitely going to help me and has helped me in the past. But I think it's helped me because I don't go into every meeting thinking like, how can I make money? Or like, how can I, get something immediately out of this interaction?
There's a lot of adults that could use that.
Way use that. I completely agree.
Lesson.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong. There are some meetings that I go into and I'm like, I need you to buy some cake. But
Yeah, there's a time and a place, right? I need you to buy some cake.
But being open to that organic growth, I think, is what makes for a great entrepreneur. That's not something you can really teach.
Yeah, I would agree. So let's shift to some advice that you would give, and specifically to a young entrepreneur. So, somebody that's either in college or just out of school, maybe in their 20s, that's thinking about doing this, launching out. What advice would you give to them?
I think maybe my first advice would be, if you're in school, know why you're in school, because if you're spending a lot of money to be there, you should think about that. I went to school because I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew that DU was going to be great networking and provide me a really solid foundation. I would have never paid the money to go there if I didn't know that going into it. So I think anyone who's in school, that my first piece of advice is know why you're there and make sure you're spending the money wisely.
Okay.
Anyone just out of school or, has taken other paths in life but thinking about starting their own business, I would say just go out and find meetings. I mean, there's meetup.com and all of those kinds of things. There's just people out there who are just interested in meeting other people, and you never know what you're going to find and who you're going to find, and just start testing your theories. I mean, one of the things that we did that I didn't realize we were doing, this is kind of a funny story. So the summer after we started the bakery, the first summer at the farmer's market, which I laugh at calling it that now, but after the first summer, I took an entrepreneurship class in the fall, and we had to read this book called The Lean Startup. Hated the book. I hated that book. I was like, this is so dumb. It's all about technology. There's no way to do this in any other industry, especially not the hospitality industry, because it's all about branding and, labor costs and all of these things I'm learning in class. It's just not possible outside of tech. And it wasn't until I had finished that class and I sent my professor an email a year later, and I was like, I didn't realize it, but I was doing exactly what the book told me to do by starting at a farmer's market instead of going out and buying a bunch of bakery equipment and just working around okay, well, we can't make cupcakes because it's 100 degrees and they're going to melt. So we're going to do donuts and things like that, testing out the theories that I didn't realize I was doing all of the advice in my own way.
That's awesome.
So yeah, testing your theories I think is really important, because you could spend a lot of money on something that doesn't do so well. Yeah. But if you question every assumption that you have going into a business, I think you're better off. At some point you just have to take a leap. But.
Right. Well, and I think you embody this idea that it wasn't a huge risk for you. People think it's this huge risk to go and start their own business. And I think as you get older, it gets harder and it gets more riskier. You have more on the line. You have more potentially to lose, more responsibility in life. But at some point, the risk is all a matter of perspective of, have I done the due diligence? What is the real chances of this failing? And I've recently come upon this idea that you instead of playing to win, you win the game and then you play it. And there's an element of the way you set up your bakery of you basically knew this is all I have to do, and if that's what I do, I'm still going to be successful, and I'm still going to make a living, and I'm not going to get evicted, and I'm going to be okay. And I think that's a really cool thing. Yeah,
I think my business partners are great at balancing me out, because I look at things and I'm like, okay, well, if we don't have 50 people walk through the door tomorrow to buy bread, what's going to happen? They're like, then we don't have 50 people though. It's fine. We set ourselves up in a way that we have regular accounts and things are going to be okay. All of our bills are going to get paid. And I'm a doomsday person. And so I'm very glad that I have visionary business partners who are yeah, that's true. That could happen. And I'm glad we thought about it. But we can still move forward.
We're still going to be okay. Yeah. This is an awesome conversation. I'm thoroughly getting some great quotes from you on this. So you should write your own book one day. But we do have to take a quick break here on Connect and Collaborate, so stay with us. You can find this podcast and more at cobrt.com/radio-podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe our YouTube page while you're here, and you can find more about Rebel Bread and Cake the Bakery in the description below, so click on that link. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Connect and Collaborate. Once again, I'm Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer, here with Anthony Lambatos of Footers Catering. And Anthony, gosh, you know, we have had a plethora of great guests on here, but I might have to give the crown here to
Oh,
Rene.
wow.
I might have to.
Yeah.
I am definitely enjoying this conversation. As you know, entrepreneurialism scares the bejesus out of me. I talk to so many people that do it, and I'm just in awe. And you are no different. And the young entrepreneur, I think, is a good term.
Thanks.
But it's something that you're quickly going to move into just entrepreneur and maybe queen of the world. I don't know.
Not so fast there.
Yeah, but fascinating conversation.
Yeah, this is, and I love the perspective of just, something unique and coming from. I've been banging the drum for a long time that we need to quit millennial bashing. It's just happened so much, and I'm exhausted by the conversation. And I'm on the cusp. I'm not even a millennial, but I've just have seen what this generation has been able to do within our business at Footers, and it's been remarkable. And I know so many people that are doing incredible things, and so if nothing else, for us to be able to highlight a millennial
And the tail end of the millennials,
right?
Yes.
too. I'm
Exactly.
yeah.
I was doing a presentation, and I showed a graph, and I did it purposefully, where I said, okay, here was the graph of how long the average tenure of an employee in, I think it was 1980. And it was done by age. And so it showed the graph across the years since the time. And it was, I think it was 1.5 years of, if you're age 20 to 25, of how long you would stay in a job. And so I said, well, what do you think it is today? In the last census that was done, I think it was, 2016 at the time, it was 1.3 years. 1.5 to 1.3 years.
Well, if you're 20, you could only have worked for so many years.
Right, exactly.
But the point is, like, switching jobs is not a millennial thing. It's an age thing. It's like when you're in your 20s, you're going to try a bunch of different things and switch. But we've all of a sudden decided, oh, these millennials are job hoppers. And they're like, what?
Yes.
Like, no, not necessarily. When you look at the data, they're doing the same thing you did when you were 20.
Yeah.
So
My friends who are paid fairly are happy to stay at their jobs. But
yeah, we don't have to get into the
hard.
the generational conversation. Although there are elements of it that you have to be aware of and that are important. But to talk through those, at the end of the day, people are people. Right? People want to be appreciated. People want to do a good job. People, and whether you're 20 or 50, it doesn't matter. We have the same,
Needs.
internal needs and motives.
Yeah.
It's just maybe it might look a little different on how you get there. So yes, Rene, thank you for being here. This is awesome. Let's talk a little bit, because you did have I appreciate the fact that you worked all through college, right? Like you understood that there was an advantage to not just a necessity, but when I go and work in different organizations, I get a chance to see how they operate, see what I like, what do I not like. So you've had a chance to, it's not like you've never had a job, working for somebody else. You've been in those positions. Talk a little bit about what appealed to you in some of those companies and what you think it took to create a great place to work. And then I'd like you to parlay that to, in a small startup, what you're trying to do now to make sure that that's a great place to work.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, I had a number of jobs through college, and I think I really tried to take advantage of the fact that while I needed to work, I didn't really I wasn't desperate for a job, to take any job. So I really tried to make an effort to work for a variety of companies, from 3 people up to, I don't know how many Footers had at the time, but that was probably the biggest one I worked for. But I like really tried to be discerning about who I went to work for and why I went to work for them. And most of the time it was because I really liked one of their leaders and I wanted to see them on a day-to-day, interaction. So I think that some of the best things, the company that I was working at just after graduation, when we were opening the doors of the bakery and I still was working a full-time job. It was a company downtown. It was a hospitality like technology company. And they were great. They were very much a values driven startup. And I watched them grow more than twofold in the time I was there, from under 200 people to over 400 people, which was kind of crazy. It was a lot. It was a lot of change, but I'm so glad that I got to be there for that, because it was like the perfect time to watch a high growth company is like come in at number 150 and leave after they've had like over 500 people. And so I think that some of the best things there was that, I mean, same with Footers, right? Like your values are literally on your door. Like there's no way around it. You can try to ignore them if you want. And in practice, you can ignore them, but they're still there hunting you on the wall. And so that was something that I really very much appreciated. And the fact that it really did seem to trickle down to even me, who was like, I mean, when I started out there, I was like the lowly sales rep, like making cold calls like all day long. That didn't last very long until I switched into a different role. But, even then, like I felt very supported in the role. And while it was, especially in sales where there are very obvious goals that are met or not, it was reciprocal of like what you can do for me. Like I was there to be employed and to make the company money, but also what can we do for you in your career growth. And I think one of the best things was, I just offhandedly mentioned to someone in HR, I just started and I was like, yeah, I studied revenue management, so like I'd love to be on that team at some point. They mentioned it to my manager because there was a position opening like 3 weeks after I started at the company. My manager brought it up to me and I was panicked. I was like, oh my gosh, like he thinks I don't want to be on his team. Like I'm not trying to like switch out, And he was like, no, like if this is what you want to do, like this is way faster than we would normally have someone switch roles. You've been here for less than a month, but like if this is what you want to do and like you think you're going to be more of a benefit in that way, that's what you should do.
That's awesome.
That awesome.
Was so I was, my manager and I joked about it afterwards because he's like, you looked like you just saw a dead person when I said that HR came and told me that you wanted a new job. But it was great, and that was a kind of like super supportive and awesome environment that I was like so happy to be able to experience. And I think we really try to keep the same thing with especially Rebel Bread. My business partner has done a really good job of creating an amazing working environment. It's hard. I mean, our production staff, they're on their feet for 9 hours a day. It's not easy work, but there's, time to socialize, and we're making sure that we take everyone's opinions into consideration, and we're really supportive. I mean, the only people that we've had leave in the last year have been pursuing opportunities that we were really like supporting them to pursue. And that is really awesome. And the fact that they come back and still like when we need someone for, like a last minute event, and we could text them and they're like so happy that they get to come back.
Yep.
I mean, and that's fabulous that like, hey, we get the help, and that they're just like excited to come back and work with us and like hang out. Like they'll just stop in and like wind up hanging out for like 2 hours.
That's the ultimate compliment though,
Yeah.
and something that we try to do at Footers as well, because if somebody's, we understand we're not a forever home for everybody, and at some point it may be time to move on. And instead of, we talked in the first segment about burning that bridge or being mad or upset, we try to help them on that journey if that's what's going to be best for them. And then, in turn for them to come back to you or to us to help out on busy days. It's just, it fills my heart for sure when we have that kind of just, they're excited to see everyone. They're excited to be back. And it reminds me that we've hopefully left a positive impression on their lives and been a a positive force moving them forward.
Yeah, yeah, and it's great to see that you have something like that that's at such a larger company, because right now we're so small. I mean, Rebel Bread, we have like 8 people total, and that's including like part-time people, and so it's easy because everyone socializes and they will like go out for a happy hour, and it's not a big deal. But scaling that is very impressive, and that's something that we're gonna have to think about in the future.
You're on your way. Don't worry about that. So on the flip side, what are the issues you maybe saw at some places that didn't make it a great place to work, or that frustrated you?
I think that like I was saying earlier, when the values are written up on the wall, like you can still lose them in principle, and I think a lot of people focus on the values from like the mid-level managers up. And so it can be really hard to kind of maintain that for like the everyday employee who's doing a lot of the grunt work, who maybe has, a lot of their career ahead of them to enjoy the benefits of those things. But if you want to keep them around and they're a good worker, I think that that's something that really needs to be focused on. I think that transparency is really important. Obviously up to a certain point you can't tell everyone everything, but one of the things I loved about the companies that I was working for before was that everyone had access to everyone's calendar. I could just go on and like see the CEO's calendar for like the next year if I wanted to, and we all had access to all of our Salesforce data, which I thought was super cool too. Most people probably didn't care about that at all, but I like data, so I thought it was a lot of fun. And so I think making sure that trickles down to the everyday employee is really important, and the transparency, but also like being honest about it. Sometimes if you're so transparent but things aren't going well, but you're still like really trying very hard to put a positive spin on it, it just comes off as a little fake and like condescending, like, well, we're not there, but maybe one day we could be, or like we're not there, but all of these other things. I think that being honest about like, we didn't make it this time, but like we're not going to dwell on that, like focus on making it better next time, and like how can we do that, rather than like really trying to put a weird spin on other things.
A glossy coat.
Yeah. Some things, you're not going to win all the time. So
Lipstick doesn't always look good on a pig.
no, exactly. Yes, I was trying to think of that, and I was like, I can't remember that phrase. Yep, lipstick on a pig.
The transparency is an interesting thing, because I think that is going to be more and more prevalent moving forward. I think that when we're making this shift of, telling people why what they're doing is important,
exactly.
right? And we've moved from telling people what to do and how to do it, and now we're telling people why they have to do it. Well, if I'm asking you to do something and I'm telling you why we need it done, in order for you to do it in the best way, you have to have a lot of information, and you have to be able to discern that information to make the best decision, where the easy way is do this, do it that way.
Yeah.
And this is a much harder thing to do, to say, well, let me give you all the information, and then let me trust you that you are going to make the best decision on how to get that done, and what you need to be spending your time on, because you understand at the end of the day, footers, our jobs, creating exceptional experiences for our clients and their guests. So in the scope of your job, how are you going to do that?
Well, and if you're leading from a values-based perspective, like if you're not leading from a values-based perspective, your goals are your goals. It's all in the numbers. Like, you do what you do. But if you're leading from a values-based perspective, people need to know why. I mean, they know why, because they want to achieve those values, but they need to know how that's actually going, which is impossible just by looking at each little number. You need the whole picture.
Yeah.
So
to talk a little bit about autonomy, and you have now gone into, like, you have to decide what you need to do every single day and how you need to do it, and when you want to change something, you get to change it. How much did that play into your decision to be your own boss?
Oh, I think that's like probably why from a very young age I knew that I didn't know what I was gonna do, but I knew I was gonna do something on my own, because I've always been a very autonomous person. I always joke with my friends that anything I decided to do from the age of like 9 until 16, any decision I made, you can base it off of me wanting to be autonomous, like, and like kind of rebel against my parents. My name is Rene. My first name is Emily. My name, I go by Rene because I was like, I'm going to be Rene now. I was 13. Yeah. I started dyeing my hair red. I went to a different high school than all of my friends. I was just like, no, I'm not going to go to that high school. I'm going to go to this high school because I can. And so, yeah, I think that that's definitely always had a big part in my life, for sure. And I think that now that I'm the most autonomous that I've ever been, I realize that there are benefits and drawbacks to it, particularly in like managing my own schedule 100%. That was a huge challenge for me because I was like, well, it's great, but like I needed some kind of something. So like now every day I have some kind of meeting or something that I have to be at a certain time. Every single day, because the days I don't have that, I feel totally lost.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult when you have to decide what that is. So do your parents still call you Emily?
My parents and my like 6 best friends who I've known, actually my business partner Zach, I've known him since kindergarten. When like not in front of people, like for professionally and like when we're at the bakery, he calls me Rene. But like when it's just us, he still goes back to Emily sometimes. Like he moved here, and one of the things we talked about, because I convinced him to move out to Denver, I was like, this is where, like, we need a bakery here. We need a good one. Like, this is going to be perfect. One of the things we talked about is like, so I have to start calling you Rene now? Yeah. So, yeah.
I love it.
And most people don't even know. Like, did you even know my first name was Emily?
I did not. No.
Yeah,
This is new
most
information.
People have no idea. Now,
You've
anyways.
always been Rene to me. I love what you said about that, because for me on my journey there, I ran into some of those similar things working at other companies, and you see an opportunity where you could make something better and do it differently, and you'd go and say, hey, we should do this, and they'd be like, oh no, that's not the way we do it. And it's like, there is nothing more crushing for a young, optimistic, excited person that has an idea, and whether that idea is the best idea or not is kind of beside the point. It's how that idea is responded to. And had I had a boss that would help me work through and show me why my idea was a stupid one, or give the opportunity that it was better, that would have changed, my whole trajectory early on in my thoughts about working for different companies.
Yeah, and I think that we really focus on that a lot at the bakery, of like, the frittata of the day that you saw the tag for earlier, like that's just whoever shows up in the morning, they get to decide what the frittata of the day is. And like for cake decorating, like I have a wonderful decorator. She's like an artist in a number of ways, but a really good visual artist. And I had seen her work, and I was like, have you ever thought about like translating that into a different medium? And by that I meant cake. But I know a fair amount at this point about like how to decorate a cake and how to make it structured and all of these things, and a lot of different techniques that you can use, but she knows so much more about like actual like artistic theory and mixing colors and all of these other like tools and things that you can use on acrylic paint, but you could also use on buttercream. And so that's been kind of a fun process of like coming together with those two different things and bouncing back and forth on like, well, how do we make it textured in the best way, or things like that. And that's something that I think Zach and I both really try to push other people, of like, we have suggestions, but at the end of the day, as long as, it follows these few things, our guidelines, like, go for it. And
I know that those team members are thriving in those
and it helps our business too at the end of the day. I mean, it's great. Like, we've come up with so many products that have, were the invention of someone else that was just messing around with something in the kitchen. It's awesome.
I love that. That is so cool, and such a good lesson for all business owners as we think about that. The other thing that you said in there that I want to go back and touch on that's really awesome is your ability and willingness to see talent and apply it to a different medium. I talk to way too many business owners that get stuck, and specifically caterers, because we do a lot of work of, oh, I have to find a chef from a catering company because I can't, it's like, whoa. Like, I do not like hiring people from other catering companies. One, a lot of them are my friends in the area, so I'm not trying to take their team members. But number two, we're just different and unique, and so I don't necessarily want you bringing all the bad habits that you might have learned somewhere else over to our facility. I want you to have a different perspective on it. And so thinking about how do you take somebody that has the skill set to do a certain job that's maybe doing it differently, or doing a different job, or an artist that all of a sudden, is doing great work, but then could apply it to cake decorating. Totally. That is a tremendous just mindset to be opening your mind. When you think about the talent pool of who you can bring into your organization, it gets so much bigger when you all of a sudden say, oh, they don't have to have 3 years of experience doing this and this degree and this check the boxes like a recipe. And like, no, let's find the person that has the skills to do the job, and then we'll train them how to do the nuances of it. That's cool. Let's talk, we got a few more minutes here, and as we wrap up, I want to talk, leadership is something that is near and dear to my heart. I consider you a leader in just what you've done. Talk about some of the lessons you feel like you've learned along your way in becoming the leader you are.
I think one of the biggest lessons, which I think actually you probably told me at some point along the way, is that, like, you cannot be everything to everyone. And that is one that I like to do everything I can. And so it's like a little bit of an ego thing to be like, okay, I need to step away and like realize that that's not for me or not who I am. And so I think that has definitely been one of the biggest lessons that I'm continually learning every day. And with that, I mean, I think the other lesson, the biggest thing that has the biggest impact on my life is learning every day. Like there's, like I said about success, like there's really no end. Like I don't have some perfect, white picket fence vision in my mind of like, that's when I'm done. And we talk about this at the bakery. We have this this running joke about like, that's how I know I've made it. And so but they're all like little things that like we kind of do along the way. Like one of my jokes is that like, I really want a hammock somewhere in our office. And I'm like, that's how I know I've made it, when I can like sit in my hammock. We don't have room for it yet, but one of these days we will. And so, I think that just like the learning every day and taking every experience, whether it's good or like bad, which those ones are way harder to like actually sit with and digest. Yeah. But taking those for what they are and letting that like, help you in the future.
I love that. Just also the idea of embracing the little things.
Oh yes, that's huge.
Here's something that just puts a smile on my face. Yes. This is what I want. This would make me happy, and just embracing that. That's awesome.
Yep, I think especially the hospitality industry, we really have to focus on the little wins.
Right. It's because it is and this is part of why we started My Tribe, because I think there's so many different challenges within hospitality, and not to say that it's harder or it's just different, and it doesn't have the same challenges that tech does or a law firm has. We are out serving people. We're working a lot of nights. We're working weekends. When other people are celebrating, we're there working. Right?
Yeah. Yep.
And so the people that are in it, that embrace it and love it, and if we can all band together and do some cool things and rally around that, I think that there's a tremendous amount of potential.
Totally.
Where can people find Rebel Bread and Cake, the bakery?
Yeah, so Cake is custom order only, but you can find us online at CAK, the THEBAKERY.com, where you can look in the description. Rebel Bread has a physical store, so we are at 24th and Curtis in the Rhino area. And we're open for retail Friday through Sunday, but you can order our wonderful pastries and bread 7 days a week. We deliver to all kinds of businesses and coffee shops, so.
Awesome. Yeah. Renee, thanks. This has been amazing.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, thank you very much. It has been a pleasure meeting you. I'm looking forward to, I'm just going to get myself a custom cake.
Yeah.
They look delicious. I'm very excited about it. Thank you. you both so much. It's been a pleasure, Anthony, as always, having you on. One more time, be sure to check out the description below so you can find Cake the Bakery and Rebel Bread. More information there for you. Like and subscribe our YouTube page while you're here, and you can find this show and more at cobrt.com/radio-podcast. Have a wonderful day.